We're back. Oh, back. Back. What are you doing to me, back? Yeah. My back. My back. My poor back. It hurts. I got the bad back blues. I got a bad back. I really jacked it up. My back is jacked up. I gotta sit back like this. I hope it gets better because my lower back is back down up. Yeah, so it all started when I saw The Damned at the CBGB's Fest, and I flipped and flopped. I hadn't stretched that day. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know what I did. I really jacked up my back, and it has not gotten better. And so I'm like leaning. All of that to say, it took me a minute and 44 seconds to say, I'm leaning back in my chair because I'm incredibly uncomfortable and my back is hurting. I don't even really want to record right now. I'd rather just lie on the couch like Jabba the Hutt and watch movies. And yeah. So, but we gotta talk. We gotta talk the talk. If we're gonna walk the walk, we gotta talk. If we talk the talk, we gotta walk the walk. If we walk the walk, gotta talk the talk. It's been a very busy week. A lot of stuff going on. I don't even know how I managed to get 6 films done. I still somehow watched 6 movies, which is kind of disappointing. I'm usually way further. I'm like balls deep. By October 6th, I got like 10 movies under the belt, and I'm just slow start to the season. I'm disappointed in myself. We're exactly at a 1-to-1 ratio, which is just not ideal. I'm not proud of myself. What can I say? What does my back have to do with any of that? I don't know, but I got to tell you, it's a lot harder to be in the mood to watch horror movies when your back hurts. So before we get into it, before we jump into what was watched, let me first tell you about our sponsor, riotstickers.com. Riot Stickers with the bomb. If you need stickers for anything in life, if you need t-shirts, if you need banners, if you need drum heads, you go to riotstickers.com/Frumess. That's FRUMESS. Link is down in the description. And that is where you are going to link up with CEO Sharpie Riot. It's going to give you 1,000 stickers for $79. These stickers are 3 inches by 3 inches on vinyl. Okay. UV coating protects them from the sun. And the vinyl itself is weatherproof. It's good stuff. You can't go wrong. Riotstickers.com. They are the best. They're the best for a reason. What did I watch this week? Well, find out right after this message.
Riot Stickers, we are the bomb. Riot Stickers, we are the bomb. RiotStickers.com. We are the bomb. Riot Stickers, we are the bomb. Riot Stickers, we are the bomb. RiotStickers.com. We are the bomb. We are the bomb. We are the bomb. We are the bomb.
Jesus, that was loud. That was so loud. I was trying to figure out how to change the input. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Nothing matters right now until my back feels better. And my back doesn't feel good right now. What can I say? Let's crack open a seltzer. That always helps. This is one of those fancy crypto seltzers. That's right. Crypto seltzer. This is Yeti Mischief right there. Okay. They milk. Actual Yetis are milked. And it's actually quite cruel to the Yetis themselves. You don't. You ever milk a Yeti? Do you know what happens? You ever hear what kind of noise they make? It's very similar to Chewbacca. They go as you tug on their little nipples. They have Yetis have tiny nipples, thousands of them, thousands of them. They're all over their stomach too. So what you end up doing is you kind of rub their stomachs and they erupt. The Yeti milk comes out, and they don't call it milk; they call it mischief. So Yeti mischief is actually Yeti milk. I feel like a shooting pain going up my leg. This sucks. Oh, does this suck? All right. Maybe if I talk about horror movies, I won't think about how my legs and my lower back are feeling right now. I just don't like it. I just don't like the feeling. It's a terrible feeling. If anybody out there is dealing with a similar situation, I really wish and hope that it gets better for you. I know it's going to get better for me. This too shall pass, as they say. All right. Without further ado, let's take a look at our first movie. Now, I have been wanting to rewatch the series Tales from the Crypt, the original HBO series. I have all 7 seasons on DVD sitting right over there on my shelf. And it's just been a long time, over 5 years since I've done a rewatch. I mean, even longer than that, probably about 10 years, maybe 12 years, 12 years, maybe. It's been a long time. And Tales from the Crypt is my favorite TV show. I love Tales from the Crypt. I love EC horror in general. I love like everything about it. And I keep telling myself I flirt with the idea, oh, you could do a September watch, watch all of Tales from the Crypt. Or what if instead of focusing on movies, you just watch Tales from the Crypt, the TV show, for the entirety of the month of October? And I don't want to do that because I like watching horror movies. Who doesn't like to watch horror movies? We all like to watch them. So I was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to watch, because it popped up on Shudder. I always start with Shudder, right? I oscillate, I jump around, I hop around like a leapfrog to all the different streaming sites. I see what's on here, I see what's on there. And, there's no rhyme or reason. It's just whatever I'm feeling. So in the moment, I was feeling very Tales from the Crypty. I wanted something. And I thought, man, when was the last time that you watched Bordello of Blood? Mind you, too, and this is a key factor here, usually like the first pick, it kind of like organically flows. Like, oh, I watched this, then I should watch this. That's how I figure out what I'm going to watch. I don't just like to do that bullshit, like, oh, I'm going to watch something with robots. Let's do this. Just whatever I feel. So Bordello of Blood was what I was feeling. I was like, man, I haven't seen Bordello of Blood in a long time. Now, Bordello of Blood was always kind of a letdown for me, following the immaculate masterpiece that is Demon Knight. And it just doesn't work. It's a very flawed film. If you know anything about the production history, it makes sense. Bordello of Blood, directed by Gilbert Adler, who was one of the producers on the Tales from the Crypt. He's one of like the Magnificent Seven, right? It's I'm not even going to try and list them all, but you have Zemeckis on there. You got a bunch of them, right? That would go on to be EPs on the show. They were the ones who brought the show to life, right? So this was Gilbert Adler's first film, and it was a script that was written by Zemeckis way back. Zemeckis and David Giler, I think, wrote it way back in 1970-71, and it took on a lot of. It's very different from what the original script was, supposedly. What we ended up getting was something that came out in 1996. It's very interesting, considering the time period, and considering that there was a time where like the vibe of movies, and it's also interesting too because it's like this came out at the same time as both The Frighteners, which was produced by Zemeckis, as well as From Dusk Till Dawn, which is the first Quentin Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez collaboration, written by Tarantino and directed by Rodriguez, from a story by Robert Kurtzman, who had originally wanted to direct it, and he asked Quentin Tarantino to write a script back in 1991. So the idea for From Dusk Till Dawn predates Bordello of Blood, Meaning, the reason why I bring that up is because Bordello of Blood feels, especially in 2025, especially in watching what I'm watching right now, feels like a massive freaking ripoff of From Dusk Till Dawn. Like, there's a lot of very similar beats, and it also is very similar to the movie Vamp. Vamp predates From Dusk Till Dawn as well. So if you watch Vamp, which has what's her face in it, the black model, the goddess, she's like a goddess, man. That movie feels like a proto From Dusk Till Dawn. And then obviously From Dusk Till Dawn, which came out in 96, but was being made in 95, and like I said, was written way earlier, was written around the time of True Romance and Reservoir Dogs, okay? So it was written quite a few years before. But From Dusk Till Dawn started off as a Tales from the Crypt movie. So it's kind of interesting that they're like, oh, it's not going to be a Tales from the Crypt movie. We like the vampires in their own establishment preying on patrons of some kind. Like, that's essentially what the premise is, and then let's just do our own version of that. And what's frustrating about Bordello of Blood, if you really think about it, it was 1996. Tales from the Crypt is still going strong, the HBO series, right? Probably at its peak powers in the early 90s. Probably at its peak powers with Demon Knight, to be honest with you. But Bordello of Blood was a flop and a flawed film and got terrible reviews, and really was a death nail in the franchise, right? Like, that really hurt the show, I think, because that was right after that they moved the show to the UK. The final season is British, and I think they did that for budget reasons. Yes, Chris, we are indeed 138. That's true. That is absolutely true. They moved the show over for budgetary reasons, and then it was canceled after that 7th season. Then there was another show, the science fiction show, Tales of God. How come I can't remember the name? There was another show that came after that, and that was canceled after 1 season. That's a great show as well. The Tales. Fuck, what's it called? Oh, it's going to bother me now. It's going to bother me no end until I look it up. I'm going to look it up right now. Tales from the Crypt. Can you hear a little clickety clack of my wonderful little board here, my little keyboard here? Let's take a look. Perversions of Science, of course. And obviously, Two-Fisted Tales was another spin-off show, but Two-Fisted Tales never went anywhere, right? And they ended up turning it into it ended up getting cannibalized. Two-Fisted Tales got cannibalized. Two-Fisted Tales was another imprint of the original EC horror comics, because Tales from the Crypt utilized a variety. They utilized the Vault of Horror, like a bunch of different stuff. Perversions of Science was the spinoff, and it happened 1 year. So it's a secret, like, 8th season of Tales from the Crypt. It's never been released on DVD, unfortunately. And it's just a shame, man. And that was the end of it. And I personally blame Bordello of Blood. What is Bordello of Blood about, you ask? It's about Private Eye, Rafe Gutman, who's hired by repressed, born-again Catherine to find her missing bad boy brother. The trail leads him to a whorehouse run by a 1,000-year-old vampire named Lilith, and secretly backed by Catherine's boss, televangelist Jimmy Current. Now, it's really cool in this film is you have Jimmy Current is played by Chris Sarandon, who is a vampire alumni, right? He plays Jerry Dandridge in Fright Night, incredible vampire in Fright Night. And now here he is on the other side of the coin. He's playing this televangelist preacher who's looking to redeem himself, and he ends up turning into like the Van Helsing role, right? And then you have Erica, I can't say her last name, Ellen Nyack. I think she was in Baywatch or something. She plays Catherine. And then as Ralph Gutman is the Jewish Private Eye. I love that he's a Jew, played by Dennis Miller. And he's kind of like a Jewish Bugs Bunny in this. It's really funny. And you have Corey Feldman as the bad boy brother. Corey Feldman plays the brother. And he's almost kind of like a vampire Daffy Duck. So you have Dennis Miller is also he's like a Jewish Van Helsing Bugs Bunny. Corey Feldman is a Daffy Duck vampire, and I love Corey Feldman's look in this. It's like he had disappeared for a few years, like the two Corys hype had really died down, and this was the beginning of the long descent of Corey Feldman being like a B movie actor, and but he's great. He's great, and this has got a cool like beard stubble look to him, and I don't know, it's just a really interesting time for Feldman. And yes, as Chris mentions, he also is a vampire alumni, and he is also inverted, much like Chris Sarandon, because Corey Feldman was one of the Frog Brothers in the Lost Boys. And the Frog Brothers, they're kind of like the Van Helsing, they're the vampire slayers. So you get like a cross hatching sort of situation. Then you have Angie Everhart. She plays Lilith, the vampire, and yeah, it's not great, man. It's really not great. Now, one thing that is fantastic, it was always fantastic. It's like such a great scene when Ballroom Blitz. We get the Ballroom Blitz vampire water gun scene. Here's what I had to say about the. This is what I had to say about it. Is it open? Yes, here it is. It's been a minute since I had seen Bordello of Blood. I never cared much for it, but this was a fun viewing. I said that Dennis Miller reminds me of a lot of a Jewish Bugs Bunny, and Corey Feldman is a vampiric Daffy Duck. Chris Sarandon is another blood-sucking alumni, inversed with Feldman's role in a way. The Ballroom Blitz, Holy Water Super Soaker sequence will always make this film worthy of a rewatch, no matter how much time passes between viewings. It's a great cover of Ballroom Blitz. It's such a fun sequence. It's very reminiscent of From Dusk Till Dawn. You could tell they were like, what is going to be our From Dusk Till Dawn, vampire bar brawl room scene. Say that 5 times less. Bar brawl room scene. And we get it in the form of this with, Chris Sarandon and Dennis Miller team up. And apparently apparently Dennis Miller was a real dick on this movie and made it very hard for Adler to like make the movie. He wanted to have his scenes shot out so he could leave early. He didn't want to work 16-hour days. He only wanted to work 8-hour days. And that drove Adler insane. And, coverage was an issue. And I don't know. It does not hold up. The film does not hold up. You get Will Sadler back. Will Sadler comes back to another Tales from the Crypt movie. He was in the very pilot. It was in the pilot. Will Sadler was in the pilot of Tales from the Crypt all the way back in season 1. And then he stars as Breaker in Demon Knight, and just fucking amazing in that role. More on that later. And he plays this mummy character, which is very reminiscent of like, it's almost like a, you have the Vault Keeper and the Witch in the original Tales from the Crypt sort of universe with the comics. They were the other horror hosts, right? And so Sadler's kind of like doing that. And they're kind of ripping off Chop Poker, which is one of my favorite episodes of Tales from the Crypt with Lance Hendrickson is in it, stars in it. Chop Poker, you play poker, and if you lose, you get something chopped off, and they kind of recycled it as sort of like a wraparound. And like the greatest crime in the world is that Bordello of Blood, it was bad because we would have gotten a million more Tales from the Crypt movies. Imagine a world where instead of getting 9 Michael Myers films, like 9 Michael Myers Jason movies, where they just keep remaking the same tired concept over and over, that we got this beautiful anthology series every year, like, just like American Horror Story. Every year we get a new Tales from the Crypt anthology horror film. All the great horror movie directors take turns directing. You get Guillermo del Toro does one, Tim Burton does one. Like everybody takes their turn, and it just Peter Jackson does one, Sam Raimi. Like it just could have been what it could have been. And I blame Dennis Miller. I blame Dennis Miller. I blame Adler. It's a shame. It's a travesty. Still, Bordello of Blood is a fun watch. If you've never seen it, you absolutely should watch it for that Ballroom Blitz sequence alone. But either way, check it out. So that was film number 1. Moving on. Here is film number 2, St. Clair. So here's what St. Clair is about, directed by Mitzi Perrone. In a small town, a solitary woman, in a small town, a solitary woman is haunted by voices that lead her to assassinate ill-intended people and get away with it until her last kill sucks her down a rabbit hole riddled with corruption, trafficking, and visions from the beyond. So, yeah, where do I begin with this one, man? I didn't know what to expect. The premise was interesting. Some of the writing, some of the dialogue, it almost feels like fan fiction. Fan fiction for what exactly? I don't know. It was okay. The premise was interesting enough. It kept me like invested enough that I had to get to the end and see how it was going to end. And some of the twists and turns were, interesting. Even though it was, you could tell, spoilers, you could tell that obviously Ryan Felipe as the cop was clearly the big bad here. It wasn't a shocking twist reveal. They could have done a better job with that. Still, it was interesting. There were moments where I was like, huh. Like, when something is just really good at being a thriller, and that's what this was. um like there was like the weird vigilante hook just didn't really work for me. I would have liked it better. This is my own personal opinion. The way the movie is itself is fine. I'm just talking as a viewer, and maybe what something that I would have liked to have seen as a viewer, or how I would have maybe changed something slightly, playing armchair quarterback here. I would have liked it better if she wasn't a vigilante. I think it would have been more interesting if she, sort of has to like rise to the challenge. Like she sort of has this, holy crusade to take guys down and whatnot. And it feels very much like Dexter. It's kind of like Dexter, but taking out like Me Too, predators. That just didn't work for me. What would have been more interesting, what I would have appreciated more, is if she and the supernatural elements were weird. She like also sees ghosts, so it's kind of like the Sixth Sense in a way. It just was I don't know, man. It just didn't really all congeal in the way that it should have for me. I thought Mitzi did a fine enough job directing. Um, it just didn't connect for me personally. Well, I watched it on Canopy, and but again, if you're into these kinds of movies, you might find interesting. There was a lot. There were some scenes where like the exposition was just too much, man. It was just like I felt like I was being slapped in the face like a giant codfish of exposition, if you will. And yeah, and then and there's this ghost played by Frank Wiley, whatever his name is. And you'll recognize, you may not know the name, but when you see his face, you go, oh yeah, that guy, he's in a bunch of stuff. Like he's one of those kind of guys. And his whole, trip just didn't make any sense. He's like a ghost that she can see. It just didn't work for me, man. What else can I say? I want to have better things to say about it. And there's this whole, overarching idea that she's sort of like a new version of Joan of Arc. I don't know, man. It just did not work for me. But what else can I say? I'm just repeating myself. So that's all I really have to say about it. Do I recommend it? I mean, sure. Yeah, I'll recommend it. I wouldn't not recommend it. It just didn't, it left me by the end of the movie, especially like the last scene. I was like, what is, like, we don't even see what happens. It's not even, I don't even know that it's implied. It just sort of like cuts to the end. We find out this big reveal of somebody else who's implicit in this trafficking ring. That's what it's all about. And I will say this, like, obviously she's kind of on the chopping block at one point. She gets abducted and she's on the chopping block. That was kind of scary, man. I mean, I was like, damn, because I mean, that shit really fucking happens to people. And the way that these guys are just like, they chew people up and spit them out. That is scary. I never, but I'll tell you, man, I'll tell you, Ryan Felipe was not convincing as the bad guy. That did not work for me at all. So yeah, it's a mixed bag for me. It's a mixed bag. I'm gonna digress on this one. Instead, I'm gonna turn to da 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 da. Boom. I couldn't watch. Look, I couldn't watch Tales from the Crypt Bordello of Blood and not watch Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight, directed by the brilliant Ernest R. Dickerson. This is an immaculate film. Immaculate. It is one of the best horror films of the 90s. I said the other day, I was like, prove me wrong. Find me, no, this is what I said. I said, find me a better 90s horror double feature than Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight and From Dusk Till Dawn. Okay. So replace Bordello of Blood, the weak sort of ripoff, with From Dusk Till Dawn. And you are just, that isn't a good time. That isn't a great time. That is the best time. That's the best time. You're just not going to have a better time than that. What's it about? Ex-soldier Frank Breaker is the guardian of an ancient key that can unlock tremendous evil. The sinister collector is a demon who wants the key so he can initiate the apocalypse. On the run from wicked mercenaries for almost 90 years, Breaker finally stops in a boarding house in New Mexico where, with the help of its residents, he plans to face off against the collector and his band of ghouls, preventing them from ever seizing the key. And it's like it's steeped in like Christian mythology, and the Christian mythology works so well. It's really, really good. The writing is good. It's schlocky. The cast is amazing. You have William Sadler as a leading man. And it's a shame that William Sadler did not star in more leading man stuff. He was great. He was so great. Fun fact, my dad used to act with William Sadler in the 1973 Colorado Shakespeare Festival. They were both in Hamlet together. So you have Billy Zane, who is just this wacky slapstick demon who is legitimately scary. But what makes him scary is how nice he is. He's so nice, You have Jada Pinkett Smith, who's a tough as nails, chick who just, she's great. And she's the last woman standing, which is nice. Typically you don't see black final girls. And this is a movie where you have a black final girl. And maybe I don't know why, in the 90s, I don't know, there was diversity in the 90s, but, Ernest is a black filmmaker putting a black woman, strong black lead at the center. And I always loved it. I always admired that, man. It just really great. She was great. I think it was her first role, man. I think it was her first leading role in any case. And she's awesome. You have Brenda Bake. She's great. She plays the tough as nails, a hotel clerk owner lady who gets her arm ripped off by a demon, and Billy Zane's trying to tempt her, and she holds up her stump, and he goes, is that you saying yes? And she goes, no, that's me giving you the finger, because she's strong-minded. The demon tries to get into people's minds and will like seek out and try and corrupt you, because what the movie turns into a siege movie, a great siege movie. The blood of Christ is in this key, and when you put it over the door, the demons can't get in. The demons come from the blood of the collector. Oh, it's just, there's so much great stuff. You have Dick Miller in here, like of Roger Corman fame, and Dick Miller is just, a movie is always going to be good if you have Dick Miller. I can't get enough Dick Miller in any movie. Thomas Hayden Church plays Roach. Oh, Dick Miller plays Uncle Willie. That's his name, Uncle Willie. Thomas Hayden Church plays Roach, who's just like scum of the earth. Just scum of the earth. Like the guy you just can't wait to get his comeuppance and be like, he's the type of like, the thing about Tales from the Crypt is, including the TV show and the comic, it's always about like two-dimensional or one-dimensional bad people who do bad things and then have bad things happen to them. So it's sort of like this bad to the third power, right? It's bad to the third power. Bad people do bad things and then bad things happen to bad people. Say that. That's a mouthful right there. But it's awesome and it's true. All the characters are sort of, they're kind of two-dimensional. I don't know, man. Breaker's not. Breaker's a little bit. I don't know. Maybe not exactly. Some of them are more two-dimensional than others. But just like you got a group of motley characters trying to get through the night in this house. They got to wait out till sunrise. But the thing is, Breaker, he has these stars on his, and they're little Jewish stars. He has these little stars of David on his palm, and when they align in a certain pattern and there's 7 people present, he knows that his time is nigh. He doesn't know how he's going to die. He just knows he's going to die because he's part of this long sort of line of guardians of the key, and it grants you eternal life for some unspoken reason. And that's the beautiful part. The exposition is great because the editing is great. Ernest is a genius, man. He's sort of like slowly, he slowly distributes a piece of information here, a piece of information there via flashback, and you get pieces of the story until Breaker finally reveals. And it's interesting. It's like, why doesn't Breaker tell them at the beginning? He doesn't tell them because he's trying to spare them. He's sparing them. I got to change my back is starting to hurt again. He's trying to spare them the agony of knowing the truth, the burden, because that's the thing. The burden isn't just carried with the key. It's carried with the truth, the heavy truth that he knows about the world, and what is that balance and what is that stake? The end of everything is as we know it if these demons get this key. And, it's interesting because within the key is the blood of Christ, and there's like a very, very little bit of it left because over the years it has to get refilled, and it gets refilled with, the death of the holy guardians that sort of guard this. So this is like really my favorite kind of, B-movie Christian mythology, man. It just really works. It's just great. And we get this framed wraparound with the Crib Keeper, of course. And, it's like a red herring at the beginning. And then, of course, it turns out that the Crib Keeper is directing this movie. And it's just great. It's great. I can't say enough great things about Demon Knight. It's like you can just watch it over and over again. Great gore, great special effects. The demons are great. And like I said, you slowly get to see how the Collector, played by Billy Zane, is sort of trying to, corrupt the minds of the people inside because he can't actually physically go inside, and because of the thing is the blood barrier that guards them, that keeps them safe in the house. And another thing that I love about this movie is how at the very beginning, you're not sure if Breaker is the good guy and the Collector is the bad guy. Like, you have the Collectors pursuing Breaker in a car, and they get into this nasty car wreck, and you're just not sure. You just don't know what the deal is. You're like, who is who? So they kind of subvert the antagonist and the protagonist in a really great way. I remember being really little. I saw this when I was 10 years old in 1995. I remember being really little and just being like, oh, he's the bad guy and he's the good guy. And then that moment when you see the Collector punch the cop through the face, man, and then rip his head off. I mean, it's so grisly. It's great, man. I don't know what else can I say. It's great. I feel like that's what I end all these reviews. What else I gotta say? It's great. Watch Demon Knight. Never stop watching Demon Knight. And again, a crime, as I mentioned, bordello of blood, sort of like sealed our fate, right? Like we're Bordello Blood made it so that there weren't going to be any new Tales from the Crypt movies. However, I will say that there is another Tales from the Crypt movie. It's not actually Tales from the Crypt movie, but it was made in 1991 when Zemeckis was producing Tales from the Crypt, the TV show. It feels like the first real Tales from the Crypt movie. It's called Death Becomes Her with Goldie Hawn and Meryl Streep and Bruce Willis. And I'm most certainly going to throw that in my queue this Halloween season, because how could I not? And it's a brilliant, brilliant horror comedy, and just really tongue-in-cheek. And that feels like a Tales from the Crypt episode in a big, bad way. So, yeah. What else can I say? That's it. All right, let's move on. Mushroom Leg is here. He says VHS Halloween was a letdown. We're going to get to that. I'm going to wait till this weekend, I think, to watch VHS Halloween. So we'll see. We'll see. What did I watch? What's up next? Up next. Okay, this one was interesting. So I was stoked. When I saw The Surfer was on Hulu. I was like, oh, what a score, because I missed it in the theater, and I was really upset about that. Directed by Lorcan Finnegan, who had also done The Devil's Candy with Ethan Embry in 2015. This was his first film since then. He waited 10 years between films, and called The Surfer. Starring Nicolas Cage, a man who returns to the idyllic beach of his childhood to surf with his son. When he's humiliated by a group of locals, the man is drawn into a conflict that keeps rising and pushes him to his breaking point. Cousin Jody Ramone is here and says, love when her neck gets twisted and death becomes her. Yeah, it's great. Mushroom Leg also agrees that Death Becomes Her is batshit crazy. So The Surfer, yeah, I was really bummed that I had missed this. And so when I saw this on Hulu, I was very happy. Nicolas Cage gives just a fantastic performance. I said this before, I'll say it again. Nicolas Cage is like tofu. He is going to taste like whatever you season him with. And when you have a great director like Lorcan, you're going to get some really great Cage. And Cage he just does it. Now, if you're not familiar with surfer culture, there's this whole thing. And then again, particularly, I think of the West Coast. I think of California. You have you have this whole culture of localism, which they talk about in The Surfer, where you have surf cronies that, you have locals who basically inhabit these local secret hideaway beaches. They don't want tourists coming in and sort of ruining the vibe. And there's this whole thing called, it's called being a kook, K-O-O-K. And I'm going to actually look up the definition. It's a colloquialism, kook surfer meaning. A kook surfer is a derogatory term for a surfer who lacks experience, shows disrespect for surf etiquette, or overestimates their own skills, often leading to dangerous situations for themselves or others. While kooks are often beginners, the term can also apply to more experienced surfers who display clueless or malignant behavior in the water, right? So the surfers here view Nicolas Cage's character, who's just known as the Surfer, right? He really is the man with no name, which is very important because that's like, there's this film is loaded with metaphor and theme, right? There's a lot of that going on. And the fact that he doesn't have a name plays into it, because so much of what this film is about is identity, having a sense of identity, losing your sense of identity, and perceiving others and what their identity is. So there's a lot of that. I feel like this movie had a lot of layers. You could have a really good, meaningful, long-winded discussion about this movie and everything that's going on, all the symbolism. And I can't sit here and pour over it. To do it right, I would really have to rewatch the movie again and take notes. And I didn't do it. I'm doing it all from the top of my noggin right here, right now. I'll say this first about the look, and the aesthetic is just great. The use of distorted lenses to sort of give a sense of delusion, right? And that we can't tell if Nicolas Cage's character is a reliable narrator or not. If you're not familiar with the term of like an unreliable narrator, it's somebody whose point of view you're seeing, but maybe what they're telling you is not entirely true. And it could sort of be an attempt at misdirection, right? It's a misdirection. It takes you in one way when it's leading you in another, or it's distracting you. And so I'm sitting there scratching my head going, is he a reliable narrator or an unreliable narrator? Because we're seeing everything from his point of view. He's basically stuck in this parking lot, which is sort of like, it's a metaphor for hell or purgatory of some kind. And he's slowly stripped of his identity, right? And while he's being stripped of his identity, he holds tight and emboldens himself further in his want, his desire. His desire is to have a house that overlooks the beach, and he's leveraging money to get it, and he doesn't have enough, and he's in a bidding war, and he gets humiliated by these locals who tell him he's not allowed to surf there with his son, and he's getting a divorce, and his ex-wife is pregnant and wants to get married, and his kid kind of is embarrassed by him. And then he loses his car, and he loses his shoes, and he gets like really gross, and he can't, he gets delirious from not drinking water. And it's just like, you just watch this man slowly crack and lose his mind. And you can't tell what is real or what is not. It really is. It's a psychological thriller. It's really good. It's really, really good. And then what's interesting is every once in a while, we get a reminder that what we're seeing is actually real. It's not a delusion. Like, everything that happens to him is actually happening to him. There's this moment where we see a character who's very parallel to what Nicolas Cage's surfer is going through. And that character gives him binoculars, and the binoculars are a metaphor for, not only just voyeurism on the beach, looking down at the beach, and the beach is treated like this heavenly place, right? The beautiful, clear, blue, crystal water. And meanwhile, he's in like this dry, hot parking lot. The battery to his car dies. He drives a Lexus. The Lexus gets towed. And then he's in this broken down car that belongs to the other guy, and the other guy who's parallel to him. So there's like all this different stuff that's going on. And a lot of the movie is just sort of a one-man show of Nicolas Cage. There's a lot of scenes where it's just Nicolas Cage. And Nicolas Cage is really putting himself through the paces. He's drinking beer and like off the concrete, the hot concrete. And there's one scene where he's prepared to eat a rat, and then he puts it in his pocket. And that rat, it's Chekhov's rat, because the rat comes back and he uses it to sort of shove in the mouth of this other surfer character. Eventually he does get accepted by the surfers, and the surfers themselves, the local surfers, they have everything. Life is so easy for them, and they're literally living in his version of heaven. And as it turns out, Nicolas Cage too claims to be a local, right? He claims to come from this place, and they don't accept him, and like nothing is adding up. And then there's a line in there that really sort of gives it away, when the head surfer guy says something about how you have to lose everything to appreciate anything. And you realize that he's being initiated, and everything gets explained. Why does his car disappear? Well, it's because they had taken it into the shop to get it repaired. Who was bidding on the house? Well, it turns out that the real estate dealer is also a surfer. It's like kind of like a giant conspiracy. There's an element of Brian Usna's Society in a way, you know what I mean? There's like a little bit of that. And like the whole time you're just wondering, like, is this in his head? Is it not? And, it culminates in, it didn't go where I wanted to go. I'm still trying to figure out what happens at the end, because we're kind of seeing like this history that's repeating itself with Nicolas Cage's character. And then you're wondering, is Nicolas Cage projecting this? Is this all like Nicolas Cage's dream to begin with? It's hard to say. I really would need to sit and rewatch it. It's absolutely worth a viewing. It's prime Cage, man. It's just great. He doesn't like freak out. He doesn't do like a rage cage or anything like he does in some things. You'd imagine. I thought this movie was going to be way different than what it was. I thought it was just going to be Nicolas Cage waging a one-man war on local surfers, and it is that a little bit, but not in the way that I thought it would be. And I recommend it, man. I really recommend it. The Surfer, it was great. It's not exactly, it's psychological thriller. It's not a psychological horror film. I thought it was psychological horror, which is why I put it on. If I could do it again, would I include it in 31 Days of Halloween? I don't know that I would, but I'm going to include it because the psychological thriller counts in that kind of way. So yeah, I would recommend it. Definitely check out The Surfer. It's streaming on Hulu. Cousin Jody Ramone says, I watched Sleepaway Camp 1 through 3 and Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street movies for this October. That's great. Happy for you. That's awesome. Cheeks is asking, Frumess a bunch of I mean, I don't know, man. It's the internet. Like, you got to figure that stuff out. I don't know how to help you there. Stuff comes and stuff goes, and you just got to go with the flow because that's how it go. You know what I mean? All right, so that was The Surfer. Next up, also on Hulu, I decided to revisit something that I hadn't seen in a long time. I had no plans on watching it, and I decided that I was going to revisit Blade, but I wasn't going to watch Blade 1, which is a fine movie in and of itself. It's fine. I mean, technically the first film of the Marvel Universe, right? The Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's okay. It's good. It's not bad. I have always felt that Blade 2 is the shining star of the Blade trilogy. And so, of course, I had to watch the sequel instead. You don't really need to watch the first one in order to appreciate Blade 2, directed by the brilliant Guillermo del Toro, who'd go on to win Oscars. GDT, man, can't go wrong. He's got Frankenstein coming out. Can't wait. Faster, sharper, deadlier. Blade forms an uneasy alliance with the Vampire Council in order to combat the Reapers, who are feeding on vampires. I truly believe, here's what I said about this. I said that what James Cameron did for Aliens, GDT did with vampires in Blade 2. This movie is so thirsty for the early millennium. It's amazing how much of the DNA wound up in The Strain, which is also something that GDT did. I love The Strain. Great vampire TV show. Del Toro, like, literally is channeling James Cameron. He's taking something that already existed. It's actually an adaptation of something that already exists because you have the Blade comics and then you have the Blade adaptation, the movie Blade. And now here you have Del Toro, who's taking something that's already established and trying to figure out how to elevate it in some way, shape, or form. And he does that with an idea, a premise that we just have not seen before, and really just is so evocative of what James Cameron did with the xenomorphs. It's like, how do you make the xenomorphs more interesting? How do you sort of shape things? Well, what if the xenomorphs are part of this hive? And what if there's a queen? And, for Del Toro, he's like, hey, what if there were vampires? What an idea, right? Yeah, vampires, man. I mean, it's friggin' brilliant, dude. Friggin' brilliant. And, it just, that works so well. You have these things called the Reapers, and they have a bone skeleton that goes over their hearts. They can't be killed in traditional ways that other vampires are. Blade has to team up with a pack of vampires. And of course, you got Ron Perlman in there. And they're so funny, man. When they introduce themselves, they're so funny. The way they all they're posing. They kind of look like the Ginyu Force from Dragon Ball Z. But there's this one guy, Chupa, and he's just turned his head. It's like, dude, you're about to meet Blade, but he has his head turned like this, and it's like, and then someone's like, oh, and this is Chupa, and he looks and he turns to the camera. It's just so funny, man. It's so goofy. And it really is. It's peak millennium energy in 2002. So, I don't know, the tech, everything. You got Norman Reedus is in it as like he's really young, like looks like this young twink or whatever. And it's just one of the all-time great movie sequels, Blade 2. It's better than Blade, I think, yes. Nothing wrong with the original Blade, but it's better than Blade. And he's this idea, and the vampires, it's like, well, if a vampire is going to feed on a vampire, then I suppose they don't need to use vampire fangs to do it. What if their mouths actually open up like this? The idea of like vampires having perhaps some kind of empathy for humans in they themselves becoming prey. And then it turns out, of course, that the vampire council is the reason. They're the ones who are behind the Reapers. And it's in an effort to sort of breed a master race of vampires that don't have all of vampiric weaknesses. And they're sort of inspired by Blade to do it. And the head vampire guy is kind of like a Nosferatu dude. And it's really touching. And you got the girl vampire. She's like the princess of the vampires. And she wants to see the sunrise. And so Blade helps her to do that. And it's really sad and touching. And just a lot of like goofy, gimmicky, early millennia sort of these bullets are, silver nitrate, garlic infused bullets, like a lot of James Bond. There is a solid James Bond element to Blade. In a way, Blade is almost like the black James Bond. You know what I mean? And you have Whistler, who's kind of like his M, played by Chris Christopherson. He comes back for the sequel. He got turned into a vampire in the first one. They kind of like retconned it. It's great, man. It's just great. You could tell it's not shot in the States. It's probably shot somewhere in Eastern Europe. It sure has that feel to it. And I don't know. I really have such a soft spot for Blade 2. It's not a soft spot. It's a uplifting spot. It's just a great, great sequel. And I don't know that you would call it. It's not a horror movie. It's not a superhero movie. It's just sort of like it's an action movie. It's an action vampire. It's a vampire action film. That's the best way to describe it. And you know what else kind of fits into that category too is the underworld movies, right? So Blade 2, which is also on Hulu. All right, for our final movie of week one, the final movie of week one, we have Dangerous Animals, directed by Sean Byrne. Oh, you know what? Sean Byrne is the guy maybe who did The Devil's Candy, which means who did this? Oh no, I'm wrong. Yeah. Okay, this guy has made some really great movies. This guy did The Loved Ones. I was wrong. The other guy, the Surfer, was not directed by the guy who did Devil's Candy. It was Sean Byrne is that guy. Now, Sean Byrne, not only did he direct The Devil's Candy, which was okay, he also did The Loved Ones from 2009. If you've never seen The Loved Ones, that is a nasty movie. Nasty movie. Almost like the Australian version of People Under the Stairs, right? And now he's sort of doing the same thing. He's playing with premise paint again. And Dangerous Animals is about a savvy and free-spirited surfer who's abducted by a shark-obsessed serial killer held captive on his boat. She must figure out how to escape before he carries out a ritualistic feeding to the sharks below. He's basically fishing with people. He puts people on a hook, essentially a quote-unquote hook in the form of a harness. He lowers them into chummed water. What is chum? It's like when you take entrails and blood and you put it into the water to get the sharks blood crazy, and then they'll eat anything, right? And so this dude likes to videotape people. He videotapes himself feeding people to sharks. It's just, he's the nastiest, cruelest dude, played by this guy named Jay Courtney. And I got to tell you, I mean, if horror Oscars existed, Jay Courtney should deserve. He plays the most twisted serial killer who was mauled by a shark when he was young. And so he's been touched by sharks in a way where it's almost like he needs to sort of re-experience in a voyeuristic way what had happened to him, the trauma of being almost eaten by a shark, has forced him to engage in this ritualistic serial killer behavior. He kidnaps women, and it's only women. It seems, because he at the very beginning, he knifes the guy. He makes an exception for her boyfriend. This Zephyr is her name. Very interesting name for a female protagonist, Zephyr. I like that a lot. And she is tough as nails, just like Ripley level badass, Sidney Prescott level badass, who goes toe to toe with this guy Tucker, who's Bruce Tucker. Tucker Bruce is his name. He's Bruce. He's named after the Bruce the shark from Jaws, right? And yeah, dude, this movie, I was just enthralled. Really great writing, great suspense. It there are several times where it comes very close to jumping the shark, yuck, 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 but it doesn't. It doesn't. It holds true. Could there be franchise potential? Well, spoilers. You get to the end, you find Tucker gets killed. He gets eaten by a giant shark. Speaking of getting just desserts, Tales from the Crypt style. And that kind of, for me, sort of sucks out all the oxygen of potentially getting a proper franchise and sequel. So I'm sure they could figure out a way to keep it going, but man, a shame to kill him. He has this dance. He gets drunk and he does this dance sequence. Apparently, he actually got drunk to do the sequence, where he's dancing in a sort of a silken kimono bathrobe and tidy whitey boxers, and he just he's like a blend of Dr. Frankenfooter from the Rocky Horror Picture Show and Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs when he's doing this dance. And it's great, man. And the boat itself is a character. I would say the boat itself is more of a character than the sharks are. You know what I mean? Because the boat is like where everything happens. And of course, this one night stand that Zephyr, the surfer, has, really cares about her and like tries to like find her and track her down and stuff. It just works. So there's kind of like there's almost like a Misery. Remember Misery, Kathy Bates, the Stephen King story, James Caan. There's like a Misery aspect to this as well, except he's not trying to get her to write a book. He's, dangling her over some sharks. And, the great thing that the screenplay does, it shows us what happens to an expendable character played by Heather, poor Heather, who's just like this really sweet girl who gets eaten by sharks. And then that just sort of sets the stakes for the rest of the time that we're watching the movie, because we know what's going to happen if Tucker gets his way. You know what I mean? These people are going to be fed to sharks. And, there's a few moments where maybe there's a suspension of disbelief. But like I said, it never actually jumps the shark. You know what I mean? And this so far, this has probably been the watch of my October. Like, this was really something else. I missed it in the theater. I was going to watch it in the theaters and I missed it. And I said, you know what? It's September. It's going to be out on Shudder. Let me just wait and I'll watch it for my Shudder. I'll watch it for 31 days of Halloween. That's what I end up doing in August and September. I start banking movies that I really want to see. And this did not disappoint, man. It just did not disappoint from the get-go. And he was magnetic. Tucker, the guy who played Tucker, Jay Courtney, he was magnetic. I could have watched him read a phone book, and he's so evil. He's just evil. You just want to see him get his, and he does, and it feels great. There's a moment where the moment that came closest to jumping the shark for me was a moment, it's obviously like a metaphor for her being a shark herself. She chews off her thumb to free herself. She has a tattoo of a bird flying out of a cage. She grew up in foster homes, so it's like she goes to Australia to be far away. She's American and Australian. She's a surfer who likes to surf. And so it's kind of interesting how you could actually kind of pair dangerous animals with the surfer, because it's kind of like there's this element of treating foreigners like they're kooks, and doing that whole thing. Trying to think what else happened. I mean, it's just the body count is not that high. I think 4 people die. It's quite low, but again, this movie doesn't bank on like gore. It's more about the consequences of not escaping that are hanging over your head. That's what makes this movie so effective, because you're sitting there and you're going, oh my God, if she does not escape, then that's going to be her and she's going to be in deep shit. And that's what makes it so intense. High stakes in your plotting, whatever you want to call it. Another interesting theme that's in The Surfer is sort of the notion of society and how society treats outsiders and foreigners, and how everybody seems to embolden the Bay Boys, which is the name of the gang, the surfer gang, that is also sort of like it's a pseudo cult, because surfing is a religion to them. And the main guy who wears the red bath towel, he's like the priest. And I don't know where I was going with that. I don't know. That concludes my watch. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, another great thing about Dangerous Animals, man, what a soundtrack. Wow. They really grip you with the soundtrack. Just a lot of great needle drops. That's something to be said. A testament to a really good director is their use of needle drops, man. You look at Quentin Tarantino, even you look at Kevin Smith, who people don't like his directing, but like Kevin Smith knows how to do a nice needle drop. Zach Kreger is really sort of establishing himself as a really great needle dropper. And of course, the master of all is Quentin Tarantino. Also, Paul Thomas Anderson, I'd say, is pretty good at that. Good needle drops are important, but you have to have a music budget in order to have good needle drops. Dangerous Animals spends good money on music, I felt. And so you just get these wonderful needle drops, particularly one that sort of ties into the theme of the movie, which is Creedence Clearwater Revival song, CCR. Okay, that's it. That's week 1. I have to go now because I have to get back to watching movies, and I'm going to lie on the couch and convalesce my back and watch another horror movie. We'll see you next week. Hopefully I'll have even more. The one problem with logging the movies this way is that, like, man, it's like, man, to have 8 or 9 movies, it's a lot to talk about. It's a lot to hold in your head. So you kind of got to pace yourself a little bit. So I'm kind of glad that I only did 6 because it was easy to hold those in my head. Sarah, thanks for tuning in. Always happy to broadcast. Okay, that's it. Peace, hair grease. We'll see you next time.